Well, I promised plaster cloth this week, so let's get on with it. Hello, welcome back to episode 6, I think. Really should have checked that before I started recording. I'm sure it's episode 6 of the £100 layout challenge. A couple of things I've been working on since we last spoke, and that is preparing for this week's plaster clothing. So I've already shown you one corner. This is the other corner, which is less prepared at the moment, but just to explain what I did, and then we'll go through the process of actually plaster clothing this, is I cut a couple of pieces of cardboard into these sort of contoured shapes and put them into the corner like this. They've actually been attached to the wood with a couple of just little tacks in there to hold it in place, but it's pretty sturdy. I then put some tape in here just to really stop excess water running down the sides too much when we're actually plaster clothing, but it will create a mess, but plaster cloth always does. Never go into plaster clothing thinking that you're not going to make a mess, because you will. So I'll probably put a sheet underneath this just to protect the worktop that I've got underneath. But the next step is to actually fill this with some material that we can then lay the plaster cloth over the top of and create the hillside for the corners. So what do I need to do, or what do I need for going plaster clothing? So the first thing is I need some material to fill that with. Now normally I'd use newspaper, screw it up into balls and put it in there. Haven't really got any newspaper at the moment, and really there wasn't a newspaper I fancied going out and buying just to put in the corner, but I found some old paper. It's an old receipt book that I don't use, that I can screw these sheets up and put them into balls. It's quite light, thin paper, so yeah, but they're quite small, so it might take a while to fill that gap, but that's fine. You don't need to go crazy with how you fill the gap, just to give it some base and structure. But yeah, this is just an old unused receipt book that I don't need, because modern technology and all that. Then after that, I like to tape it in place. Now I normally use some masking tape. I haven't got any at the moment, but I did have some old picture framing tape, which is basically like masking tape anyway. So I'll use that just to kind of hold all of the screwed up balls in place, and to kind of create the shape. I don't need to use as much tape as I did on the other corner, but I don't know, sometimes it's nice just to see what the shape is going to be like before I add the plaster cloth. But for this side, especially because of the size of it, I probably won't, completely coat it in tape. It will just be there to hold the main balls, as it were, in place. What I might do though is try and find a small something to go in the corner, so I'm not having to stuff these screwed up balls all the way into the corner, because that would seem like a bit overkill. But it depends on whether I can find anything that I want to sacrifice to just go in there. But even just some bits of cardboard do the job as well. Once I've done that, so once I've filled it with paper, taped it together, then I'll need to actually switch into plaster clothing mode. And for that, I will need a roll of plaster cloth, something to cut it with, so either a knife, or I'm probably going to dig out some scissors, and then just a little plastic tray in which to put your water. Now ideally you'd probably want lukewarm water, but I don't think it makes that much difference. If I was looking to create something super smooth and that was a really nice finish, then yes, the lukewarm water helps the plaster dissolve a bit better and smooth out a bit better. But this is literally just to create structure. So all it needs to do is go rock hard and create some contours in the shape for me. So I just use cold water. It's absolutely fine. And I'll cut it into strips, lay it in there, and then lay it onto where we're going. So I guess let's dig some bits out to fill that space and cue the time lapse. Well, there we go. It's a little bit rough and ready, but it's filled the gap, and that's all it really needed to do, was just create that shape there. So the next thing is to do some plaster cloth. Good thing is it should set pretty quickly in here today, because it is absolutely roasting in here. But I may put the air conditioning back on whilst doing this plaster clothing, because it is getting very, very warm in here. And for those of you who are still fettling with your railways in lofts and sheds when it's hot, please remember to drink plenty of water. So I'm going to go and take my own advice, grab a drink, pop the aircon on, and then let's do some plaster clothing. So there we are, first bits of plaster clothing done. Nothing better on a hot day than to get plastered in the garage, I suppose. Hopefully you can't hear the fans and the air conditioning too much. It is very, very warm in here. But what essentially we've done is covered this corner over here with plaster cloth, and this corner over here, this side is pretty much set already. That has actually kind of been done twice. I used a really old roll that I think I've had sat around in the garage for 3 or 4 years maybe, yeah, it just the plaster wasn't softening, it wasn't spreading, so I guess that one's been sat a bit too long maybe. So I picked up the other roll that I had, which is brand new, and that one absolutely perfect. Even in the cold water, just dip it in, you know, not even a couple of seconds, straight out and onto the top. Yes, it's rough and ready, but that's absolutely fine. That's exactly what I want, because I want there to be undulation in there, because, you know, it doesn't really matter if you can see the folds and the joins of the plaster cloth and some of the little holes and things like that at the minute, because that's all going to be covered in dark brown paint, and then it will have eventually some static grass over the top as well, which is obviously a little bit further down in the plan. So that's the first step of plaster clothing done, and you know, it may be that by the time you come back next week there's the brown covering on there, but what I really want to get on with next is going to be sinking this down and plaster clothing in here for the sort of quarry area there. It was also mentioned to me as well about the pottery area up here needing some water, so it may be that this recess here does become like a pond or a lake. But yeah, so I think the next plan is to build the plaster cloth up and down into this here, to create the quarry-like area, and then, you know, create a recess in here for some water, and plaster cloth down into there as well, and then generally plaster all of the rest of the base area, including this front corner here. So this is why I love plaster cloth, is you can cover large amounts of space in very quick time, and you can create exactly you know, the kind of undulation and relief that you're looking for. I don't want smooth Wimbledon grass areas. I want it to be rough and rural, and to that end it's possible, so I'll just move the camera around a little bit, it's possible actually that this side is a little bit too smooth, but that's okay. We can rough it up a bit as we do the layers of static grass and things like that, so we should be all right on that front. At some point, you know, there'll probably be a board that goes across the back here just with a plain sky colour painted on as a bit of a back scene, but yeah, it already looks different. It's no longer just a palette, it's actually got some stuff on there, and that's good. Now, just before I forget and I close out this episode, thank you to everyone who took the time to vote for the layout's name. You may have seen that there was a poll put up on YouTube. If you didn't see it, then you missed out, but plenty of you did vote. There was a couple of final options. Stuff on palette was inspired by the fact that this is RAILstuff, and that it is stuff on palette, and it has that kind of something on something name that I considered. The second option was based on a comment, which I'm going to throw up on the screen now because I can't remember who it's from, where they were talking about like a play on Shepton mallet, you know, where you've got the palette and things like that, and it came down to the idea of Cheapton palette, and I'm pleased to say that Cheapton palette won by quite a distance. There's the results on the screen for you now. So this is now officially known as Cheapton palette. So when I talk about then painting this area and giving it a base coat, obviously it's really an earthy colour base coat that I want to create. So just a very cheap brown acrylic paint, a burnt umber, something like that. You know, just painted on. I often even water it down a little bit, because all we're doing really is making it so it's not bright white anymore, because that will show up through the layers of static grass. So we just give it a dark earth colour all over, and you know, sometimes I might do that with the airbrush, but for this project, it is just going to be the cheapest acrylic paints that I can find. So when you come back next week, we'll be digging down into this area, quite literally, and this area here, creating the plaster cloth areas there, and we'll be painting these plaster cloth areas as well. So as the layout starts to go white, it will then start to go brown, and we make some progress. But thank you ever so much for watching again. Tune in next week for the latest update.